Okay, well, it's exactly 12 noon here in the Frugal Amps Tone Dungeon, as I have come to call it. This is an ODS style amp, circuit number 102. If you're into the details of these amplifiers, this one is a 50-watt version of the amp that is kind of noted for being Robin Ford's amplifier of choice. His is a 100-watter. And it certainly had its share of notoriety. At any rate, I'm just going to make a really brief demo about this amp. This amp has all the traditional features of the ODS family. Let me just quickly go through how they work. I've done it in other videos, but it never helps to repeat oneself. It has a overall volume that flows through the amplifier controlled here. I like to keep it, me personally, 5 to 7, and then control the total output of the amp over here with the master control. It has several voicing options. It has a bright switch, which I find in this particular circuit to be pretty subtle. Bright switch, but it adds a little high end to the overall tone. And then there are two switches that change the tone stack a bit and the emphasis of certain frequencies. The mid boost feature, as you might gather, boosts the mid frequencies. Rock, jazz. Well, you'll hear when I switch this, the rock position brings in. First of all, it frees up a bunch of gain. You'll notice when you play these amps that it gives you a bit more volume and a bit more gain going on. It changes the values. Then it has a pretty traditional tone stack. I don't usually fool around with my tone stacks too much. I find where I like them and leave them there. And then you have your mid and your rock here, and as well you have your foot pedal, which also controls the switching between the overdrive and clean channels of the amp. And then you have what's called a preamp boost function, which basically what that does is it takes a lot of the tone stack out of the circuit. When you do that, it frees up a bunch of gain available to the amp circuit. So in this particular circuit, the preamp boost adds a lot of the gain characteristics of the amp. It's really a big difference. Some of the other circuits, that preamp boost doesn't do quite as much, but in this circuit it does. When you're in the overdrive channel, you have two controls. Basically, this is the level of overdrive. Let's call it gain of overdrive. This volume is controls how much of this overdrive circuit mixes into the rest of the circuit, and all of it's controlled by the master volume. Then there's a presence control that controls, is similar to Marshalls and Fenders. It controls some of the high-end response of the amp. So today we're playing with the now world famous. I think actually Fender is going to come out with my own signature series. This is called the Shop Strat. It's single coils and a old. Geez, who made that? It's an X1N. It's a distortion humbucker. When I build amps, I don't want to use a real fancy guitar because, quite frankly, if it sounds good with a crappy guitar, it's going to sound pretty good with anyone's guitar. So Mr. Frugal goes with a frugal guitar down in the old shop here. So this is the clean channel. that's the humbucker. This is a single coil. They have a nice clean tone, and now when you switch in the mid circuit, it really fattens the tone up and adds some gain in. The signature of these amplifiers, of course, lives in that mid-range, and I like that. I like the emphasis that puts on those frequencies. And the rock jazz switch also changed the tone stack and the response of the amp. So when you combine the two of those, you get a kind of a nice, slightly over. You can get some pretty good gain going. So even with these switches engaged, the tone stack is still active. If I engage the Vanna, will you come over please and press the preamp boost for me? Thanks, Vanna. Okay, so this is the preamp boost engaged now. I'm going to turn the master down because it's getting rather loud. So you can see when I manipulated the controls there in preamp boost, the preamp boost kind of takes out the tone stack out of the circuit, although it does still maintain the characteristics of these two switches when it's in preamp boost mode. So that's what gives it a lot more gain. It has a really nice solid bottom end as well. If we go over Vanna, come back over here, Vanna. Okay, get the overdrive and the clean channel. In the overdrive channel, this controls kind of the amount of drive. Where this control doesn't add overdrive to it, but it dictates how much is going to get to the master volume. So you can, when you switch back and forth between overdrive and clean, the level of overdrive, you can set it higher than your clean channel. For if you're doing lead, for example, and you want it to stand out, you adjust it up or whatever. So when everything's engaged, so now the preamp boost is engaged, okay, just to prove it, there you go, and the overdrive and everything's engaged. This is where you get into the kind of the sweet spot of these amps and what they're noted for.